Time now for Colts Central Radio. Here's Tyler Brooke.
How's it going, everybody? This is Tyler Brooke, your host for Colts Central Radio. Today we have a special guest. We have Chris Trapasso, NFL feature columnist for Bleacher Report, mainly covering the Buffalo Bills. Today what we're going to do is we're going to be discussing the Colts' 2013 schedule along with some big storylines from opposing teams. Before we talk to Chris, we have one pretty big story to talk about surrounding the Colts with Ahmad Bradshaw. According to Mike Chappell of the Indianapolis Star, the Colts have been working reportedly on a deal with Bradshaw after bringing him in for workouts. In my opinion, no one should be surprised about this. They were posting pictures on the Colts website and on Twitter and Facebook while he was working out, so you have to feel like a deal was going to get done there. As far as him as a running back, I feel like he's a pretty underrated back and doesn't get a lot of credit. He's quite a complete running back when healthy. He can catch, he can run, especially he can block. He's a big pass blocker. Since 2008, he's only allowed 3 quarterback sacks. He made some big plays for the Giants, including a big touchdown in Super Bowl 46. Of course, the big concerns right now are his injury problems. He's had multiple foot surgeries and has weak ankles, and he's only 27. If he's healthy, he can be a really solid back. The big question is how he fits in the role of the offensive scheme of the Colts. They currently already have Donald Brown, Dick Ballard, and Dylan Carter, who are established players on this team, and Ballard is expected to get more snaps than any one of those 3 guys in 2013. How does Bradshaw fit into that rotation? We don't know yet, but we'll have to see, especially if he can stay healthy. So, coming on with me now is Chris Trapasso, NFL feature columnist for Bleacher Report. All right, so week 1 for Oakland. Apparently, there's QB situation between Matt Flynn and Tyler Wilson. Who do you think becomes the starter there?
I think to start the season, we're going to see Matt Flynn win that job, but I can really envision this being one of those situations where he struggles. There's not a lot of talent on the Raiders roster relative to the other NFL teams, and maybe by, week 4, week 6, week 8, we see Tyler Wilson come in and kind of take the reins of the offense from there on out.
Yeah, they didn't have the best offense last year. Palmer did all right. Not a big fan of them overall. I think the Colts have the advantage in this one pretty much everywhere. I still think the Raiders need some time to rebuild.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the only way that we could really see the Raiders kind of stick with the Colts in this one, if they hit a few big plays. I know Darren McFadden really struggled in that zone blocking scheme last year, but, if he breaks off a couple long runs, they do have some speed at the wide receiver spot, but kind of like you said, everywhere across the board, the Colts should be at an advantage. And at home in week 1 to start the season, Andrew Luck's second year, I think the Colts should win that game handily.
Yeah. Week 2 might be a little different. They're playing the Miami Dolphins. I'm one of the guys that really liked Ryan Tannehill as a rookie. I think he can develop into a nice quarterback, and now that he has a weapon like Mike Wallace, I think Wallace can present a real mismatch with the Colts secondary.
Yeah, I mean, when you really think about it, if it weren't for, Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, and Robert Griffin, Ryan Tannehill's rookie season would have been deemed pretty successful by, typical or maybe now old school rookie quarterback standards. He's got a good arm. He's pretty accurate. He's very poised in the pocket, and kind of like you said, they didn't have a ton of pass catching talent for him, and now they do. They have Dustin Keller. They have Mike Wallace. I do think Mike Wallace probably got a little bit overpaid, and he kind of needs to have a lot of talent around him to really thrive, because he is kind of like a one-trick pony down the field. But, yeah, I mean, hitting, 1 or 2 big plays that could go for, 50, 60, 70-yard touchdowns, and all of a sudden those Dolphins could be right in the game.
Yeah, on terms of their defense, they didn't do too well defending the pass. And, big weapon they really brought in was Deion Jordan, the rush passer. I still think he's a bit raw, but I'm curious to see what he does in his rookie season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the decision for the Dolphins to trade up to the number 3 spot for him was a little aggressive, but I mean, with the situation that Jeff Ireland's in, he kind of had to make obviously this whole offseason, he spent a lot of money. He was aggressive in all his moves because he's kind of almost fighting for his job at this point. He's in a pretty desperate position. I think more than just rushing the passer, I think with Deion Jordan coming out, there was so much talk about how many different things, or like how much he could do on defense. He can drop into coverage pretty comfortably. He's athletic enough to run with receivers. So although I think he will pose a threat as a pass rusher maybe later in his rookie season or into year 2, I think on those zone blitzes and playing the run and playing the pass is where we'll see him be more effective early in his career.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have Colts or Dolphins in that one?
I think the Colts are the better team. I think Luck versus Tannehill will be the main storyline, and I think obviously Luck is a few steps ahead of where Tannehill is now. So I think it'll be competitive because there are a lot of new pieces on both sides that will really have to really gel together, and that might take 2, 3, 4 weeks. But I think the Colts win that game.
Yeah. All right. Week 3, probably not going to be the prettiest game going up against the 49ers. Something everyone's talking about this offseason is how do you defend the read option?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if I could tell you, I would maybe have a coaching job in the NFL right now. I've written about the 49ers many times this offseason, and to me, they're probably the most intriguing or interesting team in the league, especially on offense, because they do so many things with their offensive philosophies. They'll execute a few power runs from like a jumbo formation, then they'll spread you out and get Colin Kaepernick in the shotgun, and then they'll run some read option from the pistol, which we haven't really seen a lot of ever really in the NFL until last year. I do remember how Eric Walden, was victimized by Colin Kaepernick last year in the playoffs on the read option. So don't be surprised if he's a early target, especially if he's one of the starters at that point on a lot of those misdirection plays. But I do think Robert Mathis is the type of guy that can give the read option some problems because, just come straight off the edge. Don't worry about who's pitching the ball. Just go right after Kaepernick. Force him into a quick decision. Maybe pitch or make him pitch the ball back or not be really sure what to do. I think mainly, though, the interior of the Colts defensive line will really be tested. I know Josh Chapman's coming back from injury, but the 49ers have a great offensive line. They have 2 really good guards, a good center, and Frank Gore is probably one of the most underrated running backs in the league. So I think up there in San Francisco, it's going to be very hard for the Colts to win.
Yeah, you said it. I think the 49ers are a more complete team. They might be one of the most complete teams in football right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right, week 4, I don't really see how this could go poorly, but then again, it's crazy things have happened. But week 4, Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you think about Denard Robinson and Ace Sanders and how the Jaguars could potentially use them in the offense?
Well, I think those are 2 guys that really signify what the NFL is kind of shifting to, especially on offense, where it's not, a lot of I formation, 2 receiver sets where the quarterback has to pass to only 2 or maybe 3 pass catchers in the secondary. A lot of it's quick, short passing, let the athletes get out in space and use their speed, their agility to really pick up yards and score points. And I think Denard Robinson and Ace Sanders are 2 guys that are very good once they get the ball in their hands. However, the rest of the Jaguars roster is really devoid of talent. So I think really from top to bottom, the Colts shouldn't have any problem controlling the clock, scoring a lot of points, and as long as those two rookies don't really have a huge day, the Colts shouldn't have any problem winning that game.
Yeah, I know the quarterback situation there is ugly. Just because I want to see a more exciting offense, even though it might not work as well, I kind of am curious to see if they would consider putting in Matt Scott at quarterback, the undrafted free agent out of Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting guy. I think he got injured, though, in the rookie mini camp. So, I mean, by week 4, there's a chance that he will be healthy. But, yeah, I mean, if you don't have a good, consistent, steady quarterback in this league today, it's very hard to win.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to week 5 now against the Seattle Seahawks. 2 rookie quarterbacks going at it in Russell Wilson and Andrew Luck. What do you see happening here?
Well, I think with the Seahawks, they're very similar in their offensive makeup to the 49ers, and they actually have better wide receiving talent with the addition of Percy Harvin. I think they're going to run the ball, establish the run that really sets up the play action, and even though it's coming and there's going to be plenty of Marshawn Lynch power runs at the beginning of the game, and that Russell Wilson is going to end up keeping the ball down the field off play action later in the game, it's very hard to stop. I think that's a game where the Colts defense might get just worn down by the 3rd or 4th quarter, and unless Andrew Luck puts on a show, I think the Seahawks will win that game.
Yeah. The only thing, I think this is a real test for this defense because this entire offseason, it's felt like the Colts have been building to defend the run. They brought in guys like LaRon Landry and Brady Franklin, and now Josh Chapman's coming back. And I'm just curious to see what they can do against the run because this team's struggled against the run for like a decade now.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that GM Ryan Grigson really wanted to put an emphasis on getting much better at the run because, like you said, they have been bad for quite some time now. And I just think that a team like the Seahawks can just wear any defense down, especially one with a lot of new pieces that will take some time to acclimate together. So while it's not, I don't really think it'll be a blowout. It's kind of hard to predict those at this point. I just think that by the 3rd and 4th quarter, all those Marshawn Lynch runs with a lead blocker, Michael Robinson, and Russell Wilson running a little bit of the read option too, and then hitting those big plays down the field off play action will just wear down the Colts D. Yeah.
All right, we're going to week 6. We're going to at San Diego. This is a Monday Night Football game. There's a couple big rookies, particularly one a lot of people are worrying about in Indiana, Manti Te'o. This is going to be a interesting thing to watch because they got some big draft picks this year. The Chargers did.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Manti Te'o, they drafted the wide receiver out of California, and I think in the 3rd round, Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen, yes.
Yeah,
in my mind, it was kind of a deal. I know he's had knee injuries and whatnot, but I know a lot of scouts had him as a first-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think his knee injury and the fact that, he really wasn't that explosive guy after the catch like a few of the other receivers in his class, like Cordarrelle Patterson or like Tavon Austin, kind of was the reason why he fell down into the 3rd round of the draft. But, yeah, I think he has the size, the route running ability, the hands to be a very productive, albeit more of a chain-moving wide receiver. It'll be an interesting game, which, again, it's kind of what I always fall back on. I mean, maybe it's me taking the easy way out, but it's all going to come down to the quarterback play. We've had seasons where Phillip Rivers was an MVP candidate. I think maybe 2010 he had a huge year. But if he's careless with the football and turns the ball over, then it'll be hard for the Chargers to really overtake a team like the Colts that will really that should be very comfortable on offense with Andrew Luck in his old Stanford offense this year.
Yeah. All right, next here, week 7 is probably, in my opinion, this was the game of the year in the NFL. You've got Peyton Manning coming back to Indianapolis. Where does this rank among QB returns to old teams ever in NFL history, do you think?
Man, I mean, that's tough. I think it's got to be one of the biggest, most appropriately hyped QB returns. I mean, as you know, Manning was the Colts. He made the Colts. He was really integral in the construction of Lucas Oil Stadium. It should be a really fun game all the way around. I see the Broncos secondary taking somewhat of a step back in 2013. They were very good last year, from both corner spots, both safeties, and I think a lot of that had to do with their pass rush with Von Miller and Elvis Dumervil. But with Dumervil gone, I think Miller's going to see a little bit more double teams, and offensive lines are really going to tailor their game plan around stopping him. But yeah, I think both secondaries are going to be tested from the beginning of the game until the fourth quarter. I just think that the Colts secondary will probably be maxed out, dealing with Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker, Wes Welker. But yeah, I think it's going to be one of those games that's going to go down to the last few minutes.
Yeah, I just want to see what fans' reactions are going to be like when Peyton throws his first touchdown. Are they going to jump up or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's no reason why the Colts fans really should boo. I think he will get a standing ovation. I think he'll be received very well in Indianapolis. Yeah.
All right, week 8, they have a bye week, which I'm wondering when they go at Houston Sunday night against the Texans week 9, I wonder if that bye week will help them out at all.
Yeah, I think you can never really be upset when you're coming off a bye week and then you play a divisional opponent that you already know very well. Overall, I think the Texans have a better, more established defense that with much more continuity than the Colts. But on paper, the Colts have the looks of fielding a more dynamic and especially a more efficient offense. At this point in the season, like you said, they're going to be coming off the bye. So if they do have any important injuries, they'll have that extra week to really nurse those guys back to health. And I think this game will really come down to DeAndre Hopkins, the rookie out of Clemson that the Texans picked in the first round this year. If he can really provide more balance offensively, and so it's not just, hand off to Arian Foster or pass to Andre Johnson, if he can be that guy that can really stretch the field and take some pressure off Johnson and Matt Schaub, I think the Texans are going to be probably the favorite to win the AFC South. But if he struggles out of the gate like a lot of rookie receivers do, I think the Colts, coming off the bye, can win this game.
Yeah, I think they split the series this year like they did last year, but I think it's going to be completely different from what we saw last year because of the addition of DeAndre Hopkins and all of the new faces on the Colts. All right, week 10, they're going against the St. Louis Rams. Who you got here?
I think the Colts will win this game. I think it's going to be, one of those really, black and blue, almost like AFC North kind of games. Sam Bradford just really hasn't done it for me yet. I know St. Louis did a lot to really fortify their offensive line in the offseason, and they have much better grouping of wide receivers. I just think that Luck is just far and away better than Sam Bradford. And when it really comes down to it, and it's really hard to predict which team is going to win, I tend to take the team that has the better quarterback.
Yeah. I think it hurts the Rams when you lose probably your entire offense to Steven Jackson. I mean, you look at their receivers last year. Their leading wide receivers were Chris Gibbons and Brandon Gibson. That being said, they did bring in Kevin Austin and Stetson Bailey from West Virginia. But I still don't see them making much of an impact offensively in 2013.
I mean, I do think that the Rams have one of the more underrated defenses in the league. They have a pretty good stable of linebackers, and they have a actually pretty young and pretty ferocious defensive line. But if the Colts offensive line can just provide Luck with adequate time in the pocket, I think he'll have a pretty big day.
Yeah. All right, moving on to Week 11. They're playing the Tennessee Titans for the first time. Question I want to know is, do you think Jake Locker can become the franchise quarterback of the Titans?
Well, I think if he can, we will really find out by at least this point in the season. I guess I'm kind of biased toward Locker because I really liked him coming out of college. I thought he had that tough and gritty makeup to eventually thrive in the NFL. But his accuracy really hasn't been there. He struggled with a few injuries. So if by week 11 he's not completing, between 60 and 65% of his passes, which is saying a lot, I don't think he really has much of a future in the NFL going into his third year. I do think, though, that he and Kendall Wright should be one of the more underrated and exciting quarterback-wide receiver duos. And as long as Chris Johnson avoids, the atrocious start that he got to last season, he could have a really big year. The Titans spent a lot of money in the offseason, and actually last week I checked on Spot Track, and they had the most expensive offense in the NFL, which really surprised me. I think they'll be improved on offense, but not amazing. I think Jake Locker's inconsistency will really, stunt their growth and their development. But if the offense can return to running through Chris Johnson, then I think that'll make Locker's life a little bit easier. But to really answer your question simply, I think it's hard to say at this point, but by week 11 we'll probably know if Locker can become that franchise QB or if he's just going to fade away in a few years.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think this year he's been given all of the tools to succeed.
Yes.
So this will be the year to see if he can develop into a franchise quarterback or not.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Week 12 will be a little interesting. They're going to Arizona to play the Cardinals, and it's Bruce Arians now run that team. So I'm curious to see what happens there. I'm not sure if it's going to be a close game, but it will be kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, right now there's not very many people that are high on the Arizona Cardinals going into the 2013 season, but Carson Palmer really is the prototypical Bruce Arians type of quarterback. Guy with a big arm. He's not afraid to really sling it downfield. So yeah, I mean, from the defensive line to the secondary to the receiving core to the offensive line, I think it's pretty obvious that the Colts have a more complete team at this point. But I mean, and again, this will be all the way in week 12. If the Arians-Palmer dynamic really clicks, then I think this could be a tougher game for the Colts, but one that they probably should win.
Yeah. We're going to move on to week 13. Again, they're playing the Titans. Do you see anything changing here from week 11?
Well, I think really there shouldn't be much that will be different. These teams know each other very well. There's a chance that Jake Locker might not even be the starter at this point if he's really bad. I just think the Colts will really utilize their stable of tight ends and really not have any problem sweeping Tennessee this year.
Yeah. Week 14, they're playing the Bengals. Honestly, I think the Bengals have been one of the more underrated teams last year, and I think they brought in some nice additions. Do you think they're slowly becoming the favorite for the AFC North?
Yeah, I mean, with the assortment of the skill position talent that they have on offense and underrated offensive line, to me, I think they are the favorite right now. As usual, though, and kind of like I've said, it'll really depend on the play of their quarterback, Andy Dalton. If he takes a step forward, it'll be extremely difficult to beat in Cincinnati, especially with A.J. Green, their running backs, the offensive line, their secondary receivers like Andrew Hawkins, Mohamed Sanu. Tyler Eifert should be a real problem in the red zone. But if Dalton doesn't improve and we see a lot of the same struggles with his consistency and his accuracy and not being able to read coverages, I think that there's a very good chance that the Colts would get, which would probably be a huge interconference win here late in the season. The last thing that really sticks out to me about Cincinnati is I think they have a really underrated defense. Mike Zimmer's I don't know how he hasn't been, a hotter head coaching candidate. So I think this game will test the Colts both on offense and defense because Cincinnati does also have a pretty sound secondary. I mean, Leon Hall is one of the more underrated and unheralded cornerbacks in the league. But it's all really going to come down to Dalton. If he can take that next step in year 3, then I think this could be a game where the Colts ultimately lose.
Yeah. I'm looking at their the Bengals draft picks right now, and I'm kind of liking it. I liked Tyler Eifert. I love Giovanni Bernard pick. Even Marcus Hunt and Sean Porter. I think they had a good draft, and I think if they keep improving like this, who knows what happens down the road.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, they have a lot of young talent on that team, especially on offense. Obviously, with the Bernard pick, they weren't super excited with how Ben Jarvis-Green-Ellis played last year. I think he had a few big games, but he was really not consistent like their quarterback. But yeah, I mean, if a lot of these draft picks hit from the 2013 draft, they could be good for a long time.
Yeah. All right, we got Week 15. Colts playing the Texans again. Do you think the Texans start slowing down at the end of the season this year like they did last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we don't know, what the playoff situation will be, and if the Colts will be resting starters, if the Texans will be, I think teams kind of figured out the Texans by the end of the season last year. They're going to run a lot of I formation, then they're going to run Matt Schaub on a lot of play action. I think he threw the highest percentage of play action passes in the whole NFL last year. I think he and Robert Griffin were pretty close. But yeah, I think by the end of the year, the Colts will have already played Houston, and they'll have a pretty good blueprint on how to stop them on defense and how to really attack them on offense.
All right, Week 16, they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. How improved do you think the Chiefs are going to be in 2013?
We heard a lot about how the Chiefs were going to, be that team that was going to go from one of the worst in the league to the playoffs last year with a lot of those, with Jamal Charles coming back, with Eric Berry coming back, with Tony Moeaki coming back, and that really never happened. But again, like I've been saying, it really is going to come down to the quarterback play. Obviously, Matt Castle just couldn't cut it last year. A lot of people are very excited about the Andy Reid, Alex Smith dynamic. But to me, I think we need to see a lot of Jamal Charles. I think the offense needs to run through him. He's one of the most dynamic and electric running backs in the league. I know a lot of people in Philadelphia were a little bit upset with the way that Andy Reid played and really utilized LaShawn McCoy, that a lot of people thought he should have gotten more carries. So I think if Reid really wants to rely on Alex Smith to be that, vertical passing, throw it 35 to 40 times a game, I think the Chiefs could really, not live up to these higher expectations. But if Jamal Charles is that mainstay of the offense and the focal point, then I think the Chiefs will be a very good team.
Yeah, I'm blown away from last year. Because, I know Peyton Hillis was a huge disappointment. You look at Charles, and when he's on the field, it's pretty much expected he's probably going to get the ball because of how poor the quarterback play was. And yet he still averaged 5.3 yards to carry.
Yeah, and with him, he's not just a guy that you have to get on the outside or, throw him a screen or throw him a pitch. He can run between the tackles. He did have the knee injury 2 years ago, but he's pretty durable. He can really hit a home run from any point of the field on any type of run in really any direction. So yeah, he's a complete back.
All right, Week 17, final week of the season, playing the Jacksonville Jaguars again. Do you see the Colts having potentially clinched a playoff spot and potentially sitting players this game?
Yeah, I do. I think if it's not the AFC South title, I do think that they'll already have one of those playoff spots locked up. There's a chance, though, however, that they might be fighting to move up in the playoff bracket, but I think, it's against the Jaguars. I think they'll already have 10, 11, maybe even 12 wins, and we'll see Andrew Luck maybe play the first quarter, but then go to the sidelines.
Okay, that does it. What is your projection for the final record for the Colts?
I think 11-5 again is a very reasonable and logical record for them. I think with the 7 game-winning drives that Luck orchestrated last year, and I think he had 4 fourth-quarter comebacks a lot of people were kind of surprised with that record. I think they'll be much steadier from September to December, and I think, with a few bounces here and there, they could be 10-6, and they could even be, 12-4. I think they're going to be one of the more consistent, tough to beat teams in the league, because even if their defense takes a while to really acclimate itself together, I think Andrew Luck is that ultimate equalizer.
All right, everyone. If you enjoyed Chris on this show today, make sure he's going to be having his own radio show on PS Central. It's going to be the Trapasso Report. He's seriously a really smart guy when it comes to the NFL. I can't wait to listen to his show, honestly. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at @T_BROOKEY and at Colts Central. And make sure to follow at PS Central, as well as if you want to follow Chris at Chris Trapasso. His last name is spelled TRAPASSO. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and have a good night.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.